You just have to stop caring. You care too much about what other people think of you. You care too much about what a man thinks about you. And you care too much about how other people see you. And when you do that, you are stopping yourself from showing up as your authentic self, but also you're stopping yourself from being in your true feminine energy because your feminine energy is the part of you that is not concerned with what other people think of you. It's your authentic nature and your authentic self. This is what I am trying to practice more of in 2025 because again, no one is above anyone. I'm not above you guys. I'm still on my journey. And for me, it is moving into deeper levels of authenticity and deeper levels of vulnerability. And for me, that looks like being on the internet and caring less about the mechanics of how everything works and just following what feels good to me. What feels good to me is kind of just coming on camera and speaking and not worrying so much about my background and the setup and editing and all that because that just gets in the way. And even just being my natural self on the internet is very, very difficult for me. It's something that I'm still working through within myself because, again, for all of us, we have the ego and we want to get past the ego. And a lot of my work as a teacher and as a coach, and even as a spiritual teacher, is helping women unblock their ego and unblock from all the trauma that has happened in your life, right? And I am no different. I've gone through so much in my life, I've gone through so much pain in my life. And I teach from this point because the more that you can rewire your body, and the more that you can step outside of your comfort zone and show up as your natural self, the more that the universe is going to reward that and gift you. And the whole purpose of the universe is to bring us back into wholeness and into sort of like our perfect state when we were born, right? When we were born, we don't have all these limitations. We pick up all these limitations along the way, and then we go through all this trauma, right? And trauma is not just something that happens to us in childhood. Trauma also happens to us as we get older and we have failed relationships, or anytime I guess you would say we're doing something from ego. When we do anything from ego, we're not coming from what our soul desires. We're coming from our head, and we're actually in an energy of taking. So we want to take, right? And whenever we do that, what ends up happening is usually we won't succeed or it won't work out the way that we want it to work out. And what will happen to most of us, and again, I'm not different from this, is that it'll set us back. And so it'll create like unworthiness within us because we'll think that something is wrong with us or why didn't this work out? Why did this fail? And now we have trauma moving into relationships or even in business because we're scared of putting ourselves out there again. It's a body response. And so we want to really do the healing work. For one, this is the reason I focus on inner work so much because without a certain level of foundation, you're not going to be able to get past the blocks, right? And in my inner work course and in my private coaching practice, what I'm doing with women is the earlier work that I did on myself to get to the point that I'm at now, right? I'm in a successful relationship. I'm married to the man of my dreams. I'm super wealthy. I don't need to be doing this. And so I had to unblock a lot of the limitations that were within me to get to that point. Now, at every level that we move to in life, it's going to feel like I'm starting all over again. It's going to feel like, fuck, I thought I dealt with these patterns and I thought I dealt with this feeling of unworthiness or not being good enough or abandonment. I thought I dealt with that. Oh, here's Mia. Want to say hi? Hi, baby. I thought I dealt with that. But what ends up happening is there's like a new level and deeper layers of trauma there. And that we have to like move past. And you're going to experience this in your life. You're going to experience, okay, I got the job, or I got the relationship, or I'm married now, or now I'm a millionaire and I have all these things. And the universe is going to bring you a new level that you have to move past. And in that level, it's going to be like a very similar theme that your soul came to experience in this life. And so we all have different themes and we all have different reasons that the soul came to experience this world. And no one is unique. Like everyone is unique in that they all have a separate theme that they came to experience. And what you're going to find out is that the theme is like reoccurring. So once you move past certain like like issues within yourself. And so for most women, it's the fear of being alone, abandonment, etc. And now you're married, etc. What you're going to find is those things are going to come up again. And so for me, even when it comes to money and finances, like once you move past that level, and so I experienced all of this, right? I experienced the trauma of like abandonment and I lived on the street. I tried to commit suicide. I was extremely depressed at one point in my life. And um yeah, like I had to do everything on my own. And even when it came to finances, there was a point in my life where I didn't have anything in my bank account. I had nothing and I was always in survival. And this is why I teach what I teach, because I've overcome that. And even for myself, in terms of like reaching a point of financial abundance and marriage, those themes started to show up in relation to like my husband, which is so interesting. And in looking back, I realized that, of course, there's more and more layers because we're never done. And so you never want to look up to anyone or anyone that makes you feel like they act as if they're a guru. No one is a guru because everyone is at their own state of healing, even if they're at a different level than you're at. Doesn't mean that they're not experiencing their own level of work. And if anyone says that they're not or it's perfect, I mean, that's just a lie and it's not authentic, because if you're a human. So if you're not a robot, you're actually a human experiencing life. Your soul has come to learn lessons. And that's why even people at the very, very top. So let's say Tony Robbins as an example, he has pretty much everything. He has an amazing woman, he has this like thriving business. But what did the universe bring Tony Robbins? The universe brought him health challenges, right? And all of that is just to test um like how resilient you are, and how like if you've actually overcome certain limiting beliefs about yourself. And in my course and in my private coaching, I teach about like the three core limiting beliefs that we all have, and there's different layers to that. And so as an example, even for myself, what was really interesting is, before I met my husband, I had already, or I thought I had already overcome like my money issues. And, I love being alone. I just really cherished my alone time because my ex and I had like obviously broken up, and he was a lawyer, he was a multimillionaire. And, I had left that relationship because money is not everything. And I knew he wasn't the one for me. But I also left the practice of law because my soul was calling me to do this. And of course, being on the internet is very uncomfortable for me. And this is the reason I'm even showing up. Like, I'm going to do my best to show up in 2025 even more raw and more authentic. And so I thought I had dealt with a lot of these issues. And of course, when Peter and I started, or when we became serious, because of course, like there were no issues in our relationship until we fell in love, and that was like months and months later. Actually, until we got engaged, that's when things really started to hit the fan. I started to realize, oh my God, all of my stuff is coming up. And so the universe brought me a man that has children. And so now I have stepchildren, but also like in a situation where his ex, and we have sort of like a better relationship now, but she's really the opposite of me. And so there's a lot of things that she's done to Peter and to me that triggered a lot of feelings within me, because she's very much a taker, right? And so, and again, this is something that I'll share more privately. Should we do a private subscription? I think it's really important for women to have a safe space to share and connect, because I know that not all of you are at the level I'm at to really expose yourself like this, like on the internet. It's extremely uncomfortable, but we need a safe space where we can practice being vulnerable. And I had a group of women that I, had, like it was a VIP group where I shared a lot of personal experiences in that group. And I was very vulnerable to show women how it actually feels to open your heart and how to be vulnerable. And I think it's important for us to have a safe space like that. And that way that we can, completely speak freely without being worried about, judgment or what someone's going to do on the internet, etc. And so if you guys are interested in that, let me know in the comments. It is not something that I'm going to price cheaply, let's say. It's not going to be something that's affordable to everyone. And the reason for that is because in order for us to be completely vulnerable, we need a safe space where we're not everyone can come in. And so if I price a membership or a subscription at a price point that I think anyone would join, that really puts everyone at risk, and that's not something I'm going to do. So the right people, if this is something that is calls you, then this is something that we'll do, but it's not going to be something that you're going to have to invest in yourself in order to do this. And it is really to keep all of us safe, because we don't want to be in a group that is affordable to everyone and everyone can come in, and you're going to have a difficult time really opening your heart and sharing yourself, right? And so because this woman was a taker, and I lived on the streets, everything I have I've done on my own, and when she would do things, it would trigger that feeling in me again. And it would be like the littlest things. And again, I'll talk about this more in our VIP group, for those of you guys that are interested, right? And it would trigger that. And so, even in my marriage, which is so interesting because, of course, I'm married to a man that is so in love with me, and he's always made me feel loved. He proposed in 7 months, like he knew I was like the one for him. But of course, there's stepkids involved, and he also has his own level of trauma, right? So men are not perfect. I don't want you guys to have this assumption that you're going to meet someone and he's going to be in his masculine energy and he's going to be perfect, because men are not perfect. And you can't expect that. We're not perfect. Are you perfect? Do you just are you just always calm? Are you just always non-reactive? You're just perfect? Like, I'm sure that there's things within you that you need to work on. We all do. And so even with my husband, he's had his own level of stuff in his life, right? He's gone through betrayals. He was a pro athlete and his dad died. And there's like a lot of things he's also had to face. And so when him and I started to get serious, what would happen with him is, and this is what happens with many of you guys, where you want love, you know that this is the person for you, but then your ego will get in the way. And for men, especially men that are more in their masculine energy, their idea of like losing control or not having freedom like comes in for them, and so they have to overcome that. And what will happen if you're more in your feminine energy like I am is their shit will trigger your shit. So this is what would happen to me. So his fears, let's say, would trigger me. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that when he wouldn't react in a way that I thought felt safe or good to me, that I wouldn't react. Of course I would. And like the higher version of me would probably not react and say, and be very nonchalant and unemotional maybe, right? I don't know. Um but that just wasn't the case. We've had a lot of things that we've had to work through. And, even very recently, I realized that, sometimes I think that I feel like I know best. And I had this conversation with a woman the other day, and I said to her, you know what? And I said to Peter the other night, I said, who am I to think that I know best? Right? I mean, his daughter like wears makeup and her hair is dyed, and it's not Peter's fault, it's the mom's fault. And of course, I care about the daughter. And so I try to influence her. But, if Peter doesn't say something in like a more assertive way, let's say, it would bother me. And I would think like I know best. But who am I to know best? I don't know best. In fact, her soul, so the daughter's soul, chose that parent, chose Peter, and also chose me. And so there has to be a level that you got to let go of the control, and you got to trust that you can only influence someone as much as you can, and you can't go into a level of control. And if you're controlling, that means that there's a fear within you. You are trying to protect yourself. That's the ego. You're afraid that something in the future is going to happen if you don't like chime in and you don't react. And oftentimes, and for me, I've had to take care of so many people in my life that I've come to a point where I don't want to take care of anyone. I don't want to be responsible for anyone. And the feminine doesn't want to be responsible for anyone. And, deep down, I think this was a fear that I had, that I'm going to have to like take on these kids now, and it's going to be like a shit show as they get older, and just like all these fears that are stored in the body. So you think you get to a certain level, but then the universe is like, here you go. Here's new levels that we are going to test you with now. And how are you going to deal with that? And the universe is always going to partner you with the perfect person for you to teach you those lessons. And for me, I'm grateful that I am with a man that is non-controlling. He's very laissez-faire, right? He's very trusting and non-competitive in terms of he's very directional in his own life. He doesn't compete with anyone else. He's very confident in who he is, and he trusts himself, and he knows how to surrender. And it's like, for me, it's amazing. Sometimes I think he's like a Buddha. I'm like, how do things not affect you? And why do they affect me so much? And so we both learn from each other, where sometimes what he learns from me is to be a little bit more assertive. And it's not to say that he's not assertive in his life, he is. But when it comes to parenting, and again, this is his own life lessons that his soul has to learn, right? Where, you can't really be a people pleaser with your kids. And again, this is a very different scenario because, he's in a situation where he doesn't see his kids all the time. So, of course, he's going to be different. But again, what do I know, right? I come from a family, and like from a dad. My dad was very strict. I don't know if you guys saw in my wedding, my dad said that this was the first time he said, I love you. And so for me, when I see like my husband who tells his kids he loves them all the time, he's so like affectionate with them, he's so loving with them, even when, let's say they have makeup on or they're doing things that I think is inappropriate. Again, I'm just like, this is so different because I'm not used to that. My dad would get so upset if I wore nail polish, and he was just very strict. So again, we're all learning. None of us are perfect. The more that you can dissolve the ego, and the more that you can heal, and the more that you can work with your triggers, Mia's getting disgruntled, the more that your true, like your light body and your true soul is going to be activated. And the first step is to just gain awareness of why you do what you do, right? Because if we don't have any sort of awareness and we're kind of in the dark, we're just always upset and we're not going to move forward in our life. And so I made my inner work course super affordable for all of you guys, to take to take a leap into understanding yourself. But you got to go beyond that, because you got to actually do the things I say to do in there, right? I guess the next step would be to probably have another group where, we can support each other and there's a level of accountability there. And so if you guys are interested in that, let me know in the comments, and I will see you guys on the next video. I love you.